Hello, my beautiful friends. I am so excited to share something that I have been building for over a year. Now, many of you have heard me mention the weekly Health RX by Avanti. So let me tell you more about what it is and why I built it with my co-founder, Dr. Thamit Sethi, who is an integrative medicine physician and one of the most brilliant clinicians that I know. The two of us built this because we were both so tired of watching women in midlife trying to do everything they could to feel better and still not feeling well and not feeling like themselves. And then honestly, I became one of the women that we were trying to help. After chemotherapy for breast cancer, I went into medical menopause overnight. One day I had estrogen and the next day I didn't. And I found myself struggling with so many of the same things that other women in midlife are struggling with. The sleep that falls apart at 3 a.m., the brain fog, the weight that won't budge no matter what you do, the mood swings that you don't recognize, and the energy that crashes by 2 p.m. And honestly, nothing was enough. Not my medical training, not the generic wellness advice that was out there, not for me and not for the women that I have been trying to help for most of my career. So we built something different, the weekly Health RX. You can think of it like a physician in your pocket or your doctor in your pocket. Every week you get a short audio prescription from Thanmeet and me built around your biology, around your Ayurvedic dosha or mind-body constitution. You get the science behind why generic advice has failed so many women going through perimenopause and menopause. And you get a like-minded community to build you up and cheer for you on your healing journey. This is how we end the guessing game for women in midlife, for women in perimenopause and menopause. No more wondering what works for your body. No piecing it together alone, because it's not in your head. It's in your dosha. Generic advice does not work. Personalized prescriptions do. So if any of this resonates with you, join us over on Substack. Go to weeklyhealthrx.substack.com. It's linked in the show notes for you. And you can sign up for free. That's where you start. And when you're ready to go deeper, the paid version is just $20 a month, less than one latte or green smoothie a week. And inside the paid subscription, that's where you get your prescription. Rooted in tradition, backed by science, personalized for you. So many of you have been with me on this podcast for the past 5 years, and you know what I believe, that healing isn't just possible, it's in your power. The Weekly Health RX is the next chapter of my work. I am so excited to share this with you, and I hope that you'll come with me. Hi, I'm Dr. Avanti Kumar-Singh, and this is the Healing Catalyst Podcast. I'm a medical doctor with over 20 years of experience and also a lifelong practitioner of Ayurveda. I created the Healing Catalyst podcast because we all deserve a different kind of conversation about health, one that's honest, holistic, and rooted in both science and soul. On this show, I'm joined by the world's leading experts to give you science-backed tools that you can start using today and actually stick with to build real health and longevity. I am so glad you're here. Now let's get to it. Hello, my beautiful friends. Welcome back to the Healing Catalyst podcast. I'm Dr. Avanti Kumar-Singh. So before we get into the episode today, I want to tell you what we're doing on the podcast this summer. We are bringing you the Summer Reset series. Every other Tuesday, we're bringing back some of the most powerful conversations from our back catalog of almost 200 episodes. The ones that I find myself reaching for and returning to and listening to again, and the ones that I'm also recommending all the time to my students and my patients. And here's why we're doing this. Summer is the season that most of us run the hardest and rest the least. So consider these episodes your invitation to do the opposite. Because before you can add anything new, a new supplement, a new routine, a new protocol, your foundation has to be solid. And the two most foundational things that you can do for your health are sleep and food. How you sleep and what you take into your body every day. And so we're starting the series with sleep. Today, we're opening with Dr. Michael Breus, better known as the sleep doctor. Because you all know this, I say this all the time. If your sleep is broken, nothing else really matters. And so, in this conversation, we talk about why so many of us in midlife are exhausted but wired at 2 o'clock in the morning, and what's happening to your sleep in perimenopause and menopause. We also go over the 5 step plan that Dr. Breus gives to every one of his patients. And we also talk about the 4 chronotypes: lion, bear, wolf, and dolphin, and how closely these chronotypes actually map onto the Ayurvedic doshas. And as you just heard, Dr. Thamit Sethi and I built the weekly Health RX around your dosha. Now, here's my conversation with Dr. Michael Breus. Dr. Breus is a double board certified clinical psychologist and clinical sleep specialist. He's the founder of sleepdoctor.com and the author of 4 books. His most recent book, Energize, was named one of the top books of 2021 by the Today Show. He's also an expert resource for many major publications, doing more than 400 interviews per year. He's appeared on Oprah, The Doctors, and in the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, and more. Dr. Breus has been in private practice for 23 years and was named the top sleep doctor of Los Angeles by Reader's Digest. So now, let's get into it. Hello, Michael. I am so happy to see you.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Oh, I'm so excited to talk to you about sleep. You are a sleep expert, and I know that there are so many people that are really struggling with their sleep. And so let's dive in. So, you have done a lot of work, a lot of writing, a lot of work on this idea of chronotypes and the idea that everybody sleeps differently based on their chronotype. Okay. So we'll get to what that is and, so you can describe that. But let's start with what exactly is a chronotype and how did you figure this out?
So it all happened based on a patient. So I had a patient come in and I'll be honest with you, I failed. I failed. We tried everything. I had her MD prescribing medication, didn't work. We did cognitive behavioral therapy, didn't work. We did this, we did that. We tried herbs, we tried supplements, we tried chanting to the moon. We were trying anything, right, to get her to sleep. And when I fail like that with a patient, I bring them in free of charge and I spend as much time as I can because clearly I missed some critical factor in your history or in your day-to-day behaviors that is fueling whatever it is we're trying to fix. And so I bring her in. Her name was Valerie. She's allowed me to say her name. And we were going through the whole thing and she turned to me and she said, this is when I was living on the East Coast, living in Georgia. She said, if I could just move to California, I think everything would be great. And I was like, what are you talking about? She said, well, in California, it's 3 hours later. And if I could just wake up 3 hours after everybody, if I could go to work 3 hours after everybody, if I could get home 3 hours after everybody, she said, I think my life would work perfectly. And I said, say that again. And we started going into it and what she was describing was she was a super duper night owl. That's what a chronotype is. A chronotype is a genetic predisposition. I can actually look in your 23andMe data or your Ancestry.com data, and I can show you exactly where. It turns out it's on the PER3 haplotype, which is kind of interesting. There's about 60 different ones, but that's kind of a biggie. And what we see is when the building blocks flip one way, you wake up really early. When they flip another way, you go to bed really late. And here's the thing is many people don't realize it, but this is genetic. You don't get a chance to change this. However, you do have a tendency to go through almost all of the types throughout your lifetime. So let's break it down for half a second. So first of all, early bird, I changed the names. So they're no longer birds. I'm a mammal. Right? I wanted to have a mammal to be able to identify with. So early birds become lions. Okay. And who wouldn't want to be the king or queen of the jungle? Right? Let's go. Right. So lions are my early morning optimists. They get up somewhere between 5:30 and 6 on their own. They love the morning time. These are also people who are very regimented lifestyles. So they go from step 1 to step 2 to step 3. They usually make a list almost every day. You have one of these people in your life if you get an email from somebody at 5:30 in the morning. That's a lion, guaranteed. Right. And so understanding who that person is and when to deal with them on certain things becomes a kind of unlock for it all.
Sure.
The second one, I call them bears. Now, here's what's interesting. 55% of people fall in the middle. So it's much more common to wake up at 7 and go to bed at 10, right? That 9 to 5 work schedule works perfect for a bear for roughly 50% of people. Then you've got night owls, which I call wolves, right? So wolves, I've been a night owl almost my entire life until I hit about 55 and then things got weird. I'll explain. But I've been a night owl forever. And night owls, these are my creatives. These are my artists, my actors, my authors. These are my out-of-the-box thinkers, true loyal friends, great people, but they don't show up at the party until 11 o'clock. They'll stay until 2 o'clock in the morning and they'll help you clean up, but they're not showing up at 9 o'clock for a party. That's just not in their DNA. Now, to be clear, I haven't told anybody listening anything that they don't already know. We've all known about early birds, night owls, and people in the middle. I just gave them different names. The patient I was telling you about actually had a different chronotype. We actually looked at her genetics and it didn't fall into any one of those 3 categories. And I was like, what is going on? So she had an irregular chronotype. So we call them dolphins. Now, people always ask, Michael, why dolphins? Like I get lions, they're early morning hunters, wolves. We all know those are nocturnal creatures, but why dolphins? So it turns out dolphins sleep unihemispherically. So half of their brain is asleep when the other half is awake looking for predators. I felt like it kind of represented my insomniacs because that's who this group is. This is 10% of the population. These are highly anxious people. When we were talking earlier about anxiety, these are the people that anxiety absolutely rules the day for them. It makes it difficult for them to fall asleep. It makes it difficult for them to stay asleep, all of the above. So you can take a quiz online. It's called chronoquiz.com. Full disclosure, that's my quiz. And you fall into one of these 4 categories. Now you might say, well, that's kind of interesting, I guess, but like, how do I utilize that? What do I do with that piece of information? This is where it gets fun. And so in my 3rd book, The Power of When, WHEN, we teach people when to do things. So as an example, if you're an early bird, you're a lion, and you want to exercise, there's actually a time of day when all of your hormones are naturally raised so that you'll exercise better. All I do is I help you identify that time. If you're a night owl, that time's not the same, right? And so your exercise might fall into a different time zone, if you will, and you'll perform better because your entire body is more adapted to that other time zone. So people could kind of think of chronotypes as living in a different time zone. That might be one way to think about it. Like some people live in an early time zone, some people live in a late one, some people irregular. And so here's where it gets really weird is there are probably 300 or 400 circadian researchers out there who look at chronotypes. And so we collected all of their data. This is going to sound crazy, but we figured out the best times to go to bed, wake up, have sex, eat a cheeseburger, ask your boss for a raise, write a book. Like it's unbelievable because once you kind of see these hormonal patterns, they're super duper consistent. It's just teaching the person, hey, guess what? Your hormones are elevated here. So now would be the perfect time for you to go for a run and you won't get fatigued and you won't feel bad about it. And you'll have a lot of self-esteem when you're done. So chronotypes unlock when you should do things. And that's been the great fun success of it all. So when you go to chronoquiz.com, I send you a couple things like I tell you when to go to bed, when to wake up. So to get a little more complicated, but not too much, if you learn what your chronotype is, you want to wake up at the same chronotypical time 7 days a week. If people get only one thing from this entire conversation, I want consistency in the wake up time. Notice I didn't say bedtime. Because I didn't. Wake up time. Let me explain why. When you wake up in the morning, your eyes open up, sunlight hits your eye, and as you know, you have a special cell in your eye called the melanopsin cell, which sends a signal to the back of your head to turn off the melatonin faucet in your brain. However, it sets timer for about 14 hours later. It's called the melatonin phase response curve, which means once it stops, roughly 14 hours later, it starts again. Here's where it gets interesting. So if you're waking up at 6 a.m. every day during the week, 14 hours later is 8. That's when melatonin starts, takes 90 minutes to get up and in. You'll start to feel tired around 10, you go to bed. However, if you change your morning wake up time to 2 hours later, melatonin changes by 2 hours. So I want to be very, very clear. The time and the consistency at which you wake up directly determines exactly when your brain releases melatonin at night. So literally, if everybody did was set an alarm and listen to it 7 days a week, you would see a dramatic improvement in overall sleep quality, probably somewhere between 20 and 30%, just by doing that one thing.
Amazing. Okay, I have so many questions, but first I want to I want to back up for one minute, which is these chronotypes. Okay, great. We've got these chronotypes, but what are they really talking about? I mean, I think the answer is hormones, but can you explain that? Because I think that that's key
Thank you.
to understand that your chronotype actually links to hormonal control throughout the day, right? Or ebbs and flows, really.
Yeah. So the way I kind of think about it is like your chronotype is your game piece, and hormones are the rules by which your game piece plays. Right?
Right.
And so people have to understand that your hormones are going to be doing something very particular every single day on the regular.
Yes.
Generally speaking, this entire theoretical component is all based on just following your hormones, and that hormones are naturally raised at certain times. And when they are, you should know it so you can take advantage of it. A perfect example is when to be intimate. Lots and lots of people that, by the way, that's like the most popular chapter in the book is what's the best time for sex.
I bet.
Right. And it's so interesting because the way I try to address it is I say, well, what hormones do you want to have for successful intimacy? Right. You want estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, cortisol, and adrenaline to be raised.
Yes.
You want melatonin, the sleep hormone, to be down. Right. So we did the survey. 70-something% of people have sex between 10:30 and 11:30 at night. What do you think their hormone profile looks like? It ain't optimal. It's actually the opposite. Melatonin is high and everything else is low. So that's one hint as to when you should be considering intimacy. But the other one is if you happen to be deciding to be intimate with somebody who's biologically male, what do most men wake up with in the morning? An erection. If that is not Mother Nature telling you when to use that thing, I don't know what is, right? So but it's based on hormones, right? So men's morning erections are all based on increase in testosterone that occurs roughly during REM sleep. And then you wake up in the morning and you're ready to go meet your day, whatever you want to call it. And so it's all based on hormones.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So that I think is so key is that it's hormonal control that is actually dictating and sort of really playing into what your chronotype is, right?
Yeah,
And
so you kind of just go with the flow, if you will, right? You figure out where your hormonal flow is, and then you just follow, like, why fight it, right? You're going to lose every time.
Well, so here's a question about your wake up time tip that you should always keep it the same, right?
Correct.
So the question then becomes, because of the time delay from when the light hits your eyes, tells your brain to turn off melatonin, 14 hours later, melatonin will start. So we hear a lot about what you should and shouldn't do at nighttime, right? Blue light exposure. So
let's just
clarify for all the listeners, right?
Let's
There's a time when melatonin will automatically start releasing 14 hours later, but then why does it matter what I do at night? Like, why do I have to care about blue light?
Such a good question.
Because that's kind of contradictory. So let's explain that.
So there's a lot of things that certain behaviors, certain what we call maladaptive behaviors or bad sleep habits that can occur, right? And a lot of people don't even think about certain sleep habits because they don't even realize that some of them occurred hours and hours earlier.
Yep.
Let me give you an example. Caffeine. Perfect example, right? So I'm sure we've got a few people in the audience who enjoy a good cup of something that's got caffeine in it. But many people don't know caffeine has a half-life of between 6 and 8 hours. And so the second part of my 5-step program of practical advice is everybody should stop caffeine by 2 p.m. So why do we say to do this? It makes sense because we want to get it out of the system, right? It takes 8 hours. But here's the problem. It only takes 50% out in 8 hours. So a lot of people don't do the math, right? People will say, well, that means I can have as much coffee as I want up until 2 o'clock. No, it does not. Okay. So let's make the math simple. Let's say every cup of coffee has 100 milligrams of caffeine, which is roughly correct. So if you had 1 cup at 9 o'clock, 1 cup at 11 o'clock, and it's getting towards 2, and you say, oh, I'm going to slam 2 or 3 cups of coffee at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Here's what happens is, remember, it all is based on ingestion. And so it also has to do with amount, not just time. So you've got 400 milligrams on board. The last 200 showed up at 2 o'clock.
Exactly.
Right? Which means there's no universe where your body's going to be able to metabolize that much that fast. So you're still going to have a fairly significant amount. So what should you be doing? You should be moving to lower caffeinated beverages throughout the day. So what I tell people to do is if you want to drink coffee in the morning, let's just use coffee as an example, then you can move to like matcha as an example. Lower caffeine content still gives you a little boost. It's got some L-theanine in it, which can be helpful for a lot of people. So it's a great kind of step down to eventually get people, off caffeine altogether. But that's an example of something that people never really think about.
Right.
And it ends up having a big effect. Now, let's talk about wind down routine, right? So I am a big proponent that you need runway to land the plane, okay?
Exactly.
Every night, you need runway to land the plane. Because what happens is people watch TV until their head is bobbing, right? And then what do? They get up off the couch, they take off their clothes, they go into the restroom, they brush their teeth, wash their face, they get in bed, and now they're wide awake, right? So you want to have some level of a routine that your body knows, sees, and gets involved with so that the cues start coming in on both the conscious as well as the unconscious level, right? And so an easy cue, dim the lights.
Right.
That's one very simple thing. You just stop using overhead lighting an hour before bed.
So let me ask you this. So let's clarify, right? So there's two different things going on because we're still saying that wake up time influenced when melatonin, our sleep hormone, is released, right?
But there's a second influence.
Right. So that's what I want to make sure is clear is that there's a couple of different things going on. It's not just the release of melatonin. It's the cues that you're talking about, right?
Right. And so there's two big ones that are important. One of them you've already identified, which is light. So we know that in the presence of blue light, your brain does not like to produce melatonin. Now, there's different levels of blue light and things of this nature, but there's also data to suggest that anxiety will do the same thing. So you can be in the most perfect sleep environment, relaxed, giving yourself all this time, not having any caffeine, no alcohol on board, and you still may not sleep.
Right.
What I want people to understand is sleep is flexible. Okay. There's not one recipe for sleep.
Correct.
And so some people, light may have a big effect. Other people, it could be that they're trying to get their high score on Candy Crush and they're so engaged that they're not allowing their heart rate to slow down. There's one metric that everybody needs to understand. In order to enter into a state of unconsciousness, you need a heart rate of 60 or below. Period. Full stop. Okay. Now, if you're out there and you're taking hypertension medication because your heart rate will never get to 60 or below, don't worry. You're still just follow the rubric that I'm presenting here, which is lower heart rate leads to induction of sleep. And so what we try to do is not do things that are too exciting in the evening time. When you're getting closer towards the end of the night, you really want to do activities that are a little bit calmer, meditation, relaxation. You can do yoga stretches as long as you don't do any inversions because you don't want to go upside down because that could actually be activating versus the other. So again, thinking through what activities you're doing becomes important, but also your environment is important, right? So we mentioned light, but honestly, something bigger, temperature, for sure. And we're here in the summer. And so what ends up happening is people don't realize it, but it's very difficult to sleep in the heat. Right. Yeah. So, and it's all biology, right? So your core body temperature rises till about 10:30 and it hits a peak and then it drops. That peak dropping is important because it's a signal for your brain to release melatonin. So if you're in too hot of a room and your core temperature doesn't, you ain't got no melatonin, right? So you've got to have a cool environment. It needs to be quiet. It needs to be dark.
All the things that, we learn when we're kids that we should be doing.
Right. And here's the thing. Again, sleep is flexible. Can you sleep in a room with Megadeth playing all night? You could. There are some people that probably do. But is it a generally good recommendation? No.
And is it quality sleep, right? Are they getting really quality sleep?
So that's an interesting question. So there actually was a study done looking at types of music and quality sleep. And so if you were a fan of the music, it appears as though you get quality sleep. But if you're not, like if you put punk rock on while I was sleeping, I would have very disrupted sleep. But if you put the Grateful Dead on, I probably wouldn't wake up.
Interesting. That's fascinating. So like if you put your favorite kind of music on, it'll be
Yeah.
fine. It doesn't disrupt your sleep.
Yeah, at one time I was interested in music and sleep, and I was looking at a lot of different things. And there is some data to suggest that music with no words versus music
Hmm.
with lyrics, the no
Hmm.
words, it's much easier to fall asleep to.
Yeah.
And there's also a particular beat that
Yep.
seems to be helpful. And so we see this coming through in meditations, in relaxation
Hmm.
exercises, where we start to see a drum in the back that's beating at a particular pace. And that allows us to kind of allow our heart rate to get to that pace and then slowly bring your
Right.
heart rate down. So if I'm being honest, like the runway is
Yeah.
really, it's a relaxation runway.
Sure. So I have to say, Michael, I feel like I'm talking to another Ayurvedic practitioner because everything that you have just outlined absolutely mirrors, syncs up with the Ayurvedic clock, with the Ayurvedic
Maybe in my
doshas.
past
Like,
life, I was like an Ayurvedic healer or
I
something. That would be
mean,
so
I
cool.
think so. I mean, but it's all, it's based all on, the path of the sun,
Yeah,
how light affects our brains, our physiology, hormone release. So it's all interconnected because
of
what you're
course.
talking about is hormone changes throughout the day and the different chronotypes based on your genetic predisposition, what
Yeah,
your sort of cycle or pattern of hormone release is, right? And
exactly.
and that's really what we're talking about here. And that is the science, the evidence that proves what we've been doing in Ayurveda, why it works, right? Why does living in harmony with nature, why does it work? They
Right.
didn't know why back then, but
No.
we know why. And we're defining it, in these different ways for people to understand it and to, for circadian medicine docs to,
Oh, yeah.
do the research, et cetera. So it's really fascinating. I love talking to you. And actually, I'll tell the listeners that I met you at the Milken conference, the global conference in May, and I listened to your talk. And the whole
Mhm.
time, all these like ahas were going off because you were speaking to exactly this. And I was like, I need to talk to Dr. Breus because this aligns so much with the things that I talk about with my patients and with students and on this podcast. So thank you, because I think it's
Sure.
really validating of this ancient wisdom
Yeah.
because you're also explaining why it works, right? And
Yeah.
most people want to understand why.
Yeah, I like when I can find the biology and bring it
Sure,
in with
of
the
course.
Ayurvedics and getting people to start to see, it starts to make sense. And I mean, here's the thing, like the folks that invented Ayurvedics and Ayurveda, like really smart, like thousands and thousands and thousands of years, right? Like this wasn't
Mhm.
overnight. A couple of people said, "Hey,
Of course.
let's get
Right.
together and see how the
Yeah.
sun works." Like it didn't work that
Right.
way, you know?
Right.
So I'm excited about it. And to be clear, I didn't have a huge understanding of Ayurvedics when I wrote The Power of When. But since then, I
Mhm.
can't count the number of people who come up to me and they're like, Michael, I got news for you. Like you're onto
Yeah.
something here because these chronotypes match up with some really interesting aspects of Ayurvedics. And you should think about this and talk about it. And
Right.
so it's been a great learning experience for me because I'm from Sandy Springs, Georgia. Okay.
Yeah.
Like I had
No, it's
almost no exposure to anything,
right.
even remotely like
Right.
that. So for me, it's been a great awakening, I guess, in certain
Yeah.
ways,
It's great.
and an opportunity to learn.
Well, yeah, and and I was obviously reading a lot about your work and reading your work before we had this conversation. And so just for all my listeners who are very deeply into Ayurveda and have been listening to this podcast for a while, what I saw was that lions, those early risers are very much the pitta
Yes,
dosha, right? They are
absolutely.
that fire water, that is their dosha, right?
Mhm.
And then the bears are very much kapha, which is that earth and water
Oh, okay. I see
because
that.
they sort of follow the sun more naturally.
Yeah, exactly.
Um, they usually don't have any problems sleeping either, which I think is one
Yeah.
of the things you said.
Mhm,
Kaphas are like really good sleepers.
mhm.
And then the wolves, they are vata for sure.
Yes.
Absolutely. Full stop. Up
Yeah.
all night.
It's
Creative.
literally almost a description of it.
It
When
is.
somebody showed me a description of that, I was
Oh
like,
my gosh.
"Who wrote
It's
this? Because it looks
exactly.
like my stuff."
It's to a T. And then the last one, which is dolphins, is actually sort of a vata pitta picture. It's sort of a mix.
Right. It's almost like a hybrid.
Exactly. It's sort
And
of that mix.
I also think, by the way, that there can be dolphins by circumstance, right?
Mhm.
And so as an example, a circumstance might be menopause.
Right.
So I've got some women who are dolphins for a period of life, And then
Yep.
everything settles, and now we figure out what's going on next.
Right. And so that actually also lines up. So doshas apply not only to you specifically in your genetics, right? But
Hmm.
the doshas also show up in the times of the day, in the
Right.
times of the year, and then also in the times of life. So the middle part of
Oh,
life
that's
is the
cool.
pitta or fire time. You need a lot of fire to do all the things that you're doing out in the
Mm.
world,
Hmm. Hmm.
raising a family, having a partner, having a career, taking
Yeah.
care of elderly, right?
Right.
And what
Kids. Yeah.
happens is that when you're at that transition point going from that middle stage of life into after that, right? You're
Hmm.
going from pitta to vata. Basically, if you've
That's where
accumulated, yep, you're right there in the middle. So that's that dolphin time.
so
You're
that's
transitioning.
perfect.
Exactly. You're transitioning from this very high intensity fire pitta time into the vata time, which is more of a
Mm.
creative, sort of
Hmm.
introspective time of life. And
Fascinating.
that is really, when I'm talking to, a lot of women about perimenopause, menopause, what I always say to them is that the reason that these symptoms show up so differently for so many of us women is
Mm.
because based on how well you were able to balance during that middle time of your life, your balance from an Ayurvedic perspective,
Uh-huh.
right?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Balance your dosha, that will dictate what the symptoms look like. Because if you were able to
So
sort of
cool.
balance that fire and you also had maybe not as much fire in your dosha, your symptoms are going to look different when you get to menopause, perimenopause, and menopause
Oh,
because you don't have so
fascinating.
much heat accumulated. So it's just so interesting that everything that you've been talking about just, mirrors and is the proof. Honestly, I really appreciate that because we need the science that shows why these things work because we live in a modern world. People want to understand, well, like, why does it work? Like, you can tell me to do these XYZ practices, but show me the proof. Like,
Right.
I understand that. I'm a scientist. I'm an
Right.
like, I went to medical school. Like, this
Right.
is the world I live in. So I'm bringing those two together. So anyway, thank you for saying that. But one thing I wanted to ask then is
Mhm.
what would you say to somebody who thinks that maybe they're lazy because they
Mhm.
can't wake up early, right?
Right. So that's a wolf.
Right.
And so that would be vata, right?
Mhm. Exactly.
Right. And so that would be very characteristic of how people would view that person, right? But that
Right.
person's not lazy. What that
Right.
person is they're time delayed, right?
Yeah.
So as an example, I've been a wolf almost my entire life until I hit about 54,
Mhm.
55, and then I started to change. But I mean, people called me lazy my entire life, my
Mm.
entire career. I could never take a 7 a.m. or even an 8 a.m. class. If I did,
Mhm.
I was for sure I was asleep.
Right.
I was miserable in it. I certainly wasn't performing at those levels.
Mhm.
And it was really because it was a mismatch,
Right.
right? It wasn't that I was lazy because later on in the day when I woke up, I got good grades. So
Yeah.
clearly, and so then people
Exactly.
were like, oh, well, maybe it's the topic of the first. No, they tried math, they tried, English,
Mhm.
they tried literature,
Yeah.
science, like it didn't matter. It was
Mhm.
the time because
Mhm.
my body learns at a different time.
Right.
And we can also see this, for example, in our children, right?
Yeah.
So one of the things that we notice is that children will go through each one of these stages,
Mhm.
which is kind of fascinating. And it actually falls well within the Ayurvedic tradition,
Yep.
right?
It does.
So when we look at babies in my world, babies are lions, right? They go to bed really
Yep.
early, they wake up really early.
Mhm.
Then once you get into like the toddler kind of middle schooler range, they're bears, right? They
Mhm.
like to go to bed around 7:30, they like to wake up around 7:30. And then
Mhm.
adolescent hits. What do they want to do? Stay up late and sleep late, like a wolf,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And so then seems like your chronotype kind of sets at about 20, 25. Then it's there for about 30, 40 years. And
Mhm.
then it actually starts to go backwards. So I don't know
Yep.
if your parents are still alive. My
Yes.
parents are, and when I call them up and say, "Hey, you want to have dinner?" They say, "Great, we'll meet you, at the restaurant at
Exactly.
4:30." I'm like, "4:30? What's wrong with you?" Right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's because their circadian rhythms are actually going earlier and earlier because they're going to be in
Exactly.
bed by 8:30, 9 o'clock. So
Right.
4:30 kind of makes a little bit of sense to them.
Right. So
So
this is adaptable. I mean, the
yes.
chronotype is, it is a genetic predisposition, but it also changes
Yeah.
in addition, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
I call that
Yeah.
part chrono longevity because it seems to come across the lifespan. And one of the things, I don't have any data on this, but my theory is that if the closer you follow your chronotype, I would argue the greater your health span,
Absolutely. I would
right?
100% agree with you. I know I've read enough studies to know that there is data that aligns with that, but also just clinically and just from my experience that,
Yeah.
yeah, that. So let me ask you this.
Mhm.
If you had to say, to the listeners, like these are 3 everyday habits that
Yeah.
are sabotaging your sleep.
Oh, I got better than that. I got a 5-step plan, which
Mhm.
is super easy for everybody to remember. And
Right?
each part of the plan has got one thing that you have to do. And the good news is none of it will cost you $1. Okay.
Love it.
So you already
Mhm.
learned the first one. So step number 1 is to wake up at one time. So you
Okay.
pick your time. I'd prefer it based on your chronotype.
Mhm.
Step number 1 is one wake up time. Step number
Okay.
2, you've also already heard, stop caffeine by 2 p.m., right? Now, I'm
Okay.
going to give you also another hint is you should hydrate before you caffeinate every morning. So if you are a listener and the first liquid that crosses your lips has got a little bit of caffeine in it, that is probably not what we would
Exactly.
advise. We would
Right.
advise for you to hydrate before you caffeinate. Many people don't know sleep in and of itself is a dehydrative event. People lose almost a full liter of water just from the humidity in your breath every night.
Mm.
So when you drink caffeine, which is of course a diuretic, I mean, don't get me wrong, it's got some liquid in there, but if it starts to make you pee, I mean, you're going to be a raisin by 11 o'clock, like you're going to have no
Exactly.
water left in your body. So
Right.
I tell people wait and hydrate before you caffeinate. Wait 90 minutes for your first cup of coffee. So that's the
Yep.
front end, and then stop at 2 o'clock as the back end. So that's step number
Right.
2. Step
Mhm.
number 3 is on something we haven't talked about yet, alcohol. So
Yep.
we got to address it
We gotta
because
address it.
alcohol is the number 1 sleep aid in the world. More
Exactly.
people drink themselves to sleep every single
Yep.
night than any other single substance. And I'm here to
Mhm.
tell you, it is about the worst thing you could possibly do. Okay. Now,
Yes.
I'm not against alcohol drinking. I'm not a teetotaler. I'm not somebody who says no
Right.
alcohol, period.
Mhm.
However, everybody out there needs to understand that alcohol, while it makes you feel sleepy, it basically destroys stage 3 and
Correct.
4 sleep. Now, just for folks to understand, stage 3 and 4 sleep is your physical restoration. Okay. This is your wake up and feel great sleep. It's kind of like bringing your car into the body shop and getting the dents and the scratches pulled out. And this happens every night. And when you drink alcohol, there's no body work. Okay. There's no repainting, right? You're just unconscious. You've actually
Right.
been anesthetized, if you want to know the truth of the matter. That's
Mhm.
really what an alcohol has done. It hasn't put you into a state of sleep. It's put you into basically a state of
Right.
anesthesia, right?
Mhm.
And we know that's not sleep, right?
Exactly.
We know that it's not restorative. It's not where we want
Mm-mm.
people to be. So if you want to drink, you want to limit your drinks to 2 drinks, and you want to stop drinking 3 hours before bed. Let me give you the math. So it takes the average human approximately 1 hour to digest one alcoholic beverage. So
Right.
let's say it's 6:30, 7 o'clock, you're sitting down for dinner, glass of wine. Nothing wrong with a glass of wine. Have your glass of wine, right? Finish your glass of wine. Now have a glass of water. We want to balance the alcohol with hydration because, again, once you break the seal and start urinating, you're going to be peeing all night long.
Right.
Then you get your second glass of wine. Maybe you don't even drink the whole thing, maybe 3/4. Have a glass of water, and now you stop. And it should be approximately 3 hours before bed. So if you stop by, let's say 7:30, by 10:30, you're good to go. You've been able to enjoy a glass of wine and a half or so with your meal, and it's not
Mhm.
having a massive effect on your sleep. Now, I want to
Right.
be clear. If you don't drink, it's better. Okay. Like, let's just call it what it is. All
Thank
right.
you for saying that. I appreciate that because I think it's important. We
Yeah.
have to tell people the truth about
Yes.
how this is
Yes.
affecting them. Mhm. Great.
Absolutely. Right. So
Mhm.
no drinking equals better sleep,
Yeah.
period, full stop. But if you're one of these people who has had a long history of having a glass of wine or a cocktail, and that's part of your routine, and that's something that you enjoy, I'm not here to take that away from you, but I am letting you know there's an
Right.
appropriate time and place to do that so that you
Mhm.
don't mess up what I'm trying to fix, which is your sleep.
Exactly. Your
Right.
sleep. Yep.
So
Yep.
step number 3 is to stop drinking 3 hours before bed. Step number
Okay.
4 is another easy one, and it's one of my favorites. It's about exercise. So
Mhm.
the single best way to improve sleep quality is daily exercise. Good
Mhm.
news, you don't have to run a marathon. 20 minutes of cardio is kind of all you need. And it doesn't have to be vigorous. You can take the dog for a walk. You can go to the coffee shop, you park your car in the furthest part of the parking lot and walk every day. But if you do this every day, we see a big increase in your overall sleep quality. But if you do exercise too close to bedtime, you increase your core body temperature.
Exactly.
Makes it very difficult to sleep. So step number 4 is to wait 4 hours for sleep after exercise. So you notice how 1 bedtime, 2, stop at 2, 3 hours before bed, 4 hours before bed exercise. Okay. So now we're on the last step, and it's all about the morning routine. So a lot of people don't think about it, but your morning will absolutely dictate a lot of what goes on in your daytime.
For sure.
So I have 3 things that I ask people to do every morning. I call them the 3 15s. So the first one, you're going to love this one. I ask people to sit on the edge of their bed, put their feet down. I just want 15 deep breaths. That's all I want. I just want to wake up the system, bring you present, right? Get your head in the place where you need to be. Number 2, you should have a bottle next to you with 15 ounces of water. We're going to hydrate you, whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
Do me a favor, sip, don't gulp. A lot of people, so I learned this it's very interesting. A lot of people don't realize this, but when you and you just hammer down a bunch of water, you basically just pee it out. You get very little absorption. You really have to pace it, right? I tell people, think about like if you were a sponge. Like, when you go out in the morning in the kitchen and there's that sponge and it's kind of shrunk down, it's in this little rectangle and it's hard as a rock. When you open up the faucet all the way, like gulping water, the water hits it and splashes right off. But if you just open it up a little and you drops it starts to absorb and now you have a useful tool, and we're the sponge. So sip, don't gulp. Okay. So that's the second one. The third part is I want you to go outside and get 15 minutes of sunshine, right?
Love it.
Why sunshine? Well, because number 1, it's a vitamin D creator and it helps stop the melatonin in your head. Right?
Resets your circadian rhythm.
Exactly. Yep. And it's actually kind of a nice routine to do. I will tell you, I've added one more feature to it, which is kind of a little extra bonus for people, which is when I go outside with my water, and I actually do my deep breathing outside with my water in the sun. But if I'm honest with you, I like to take off my shoes and put my feet on the earth. It's called grounding or earthing. There's not a tremendous amount of data on it, but it feels really good. So I can't knock it because I'm pretty sure it isn't going to hurt you. And it's nice to just have that kind of connection with nature or with the earth. Like you're getting the sun and then you kind of with your feet on the earth. I know I'm sounding all California woo-woo right now.
No, it's amazing.
But you know what I'm talking about here. It's like,
absolutely.
It's like becoming part of the universe every morning by having some sun and having some earth, and you're kind of in between. It's kind of cool.
Again, Michael, I told you, I feel like I'm talking to an Ayurvedic practitioner. Like, this is the stuff we talk about, like integrative doctors. This is what we're doing. We're talking about these things. Okay, let me move. I want to make sure that we talk about sex and sleep.
Yep. So here's some interesting data that came across that, because we actually did a study with chronotypes and sex. And what was interesting was when we broke it out based on your chronotype, lions obviously preferred sex in the morning time. And they felt as though the men who were lions felt as though they had stronger erections and they didn't have nearly the level of premature ejaculation that they had previously been experiencing.
Okay.
Kind of interesting data for guys who are in that department, right, to start to understand. When we looked at women and we asked them, better connection, they felt with their partner, so a better emotional connection. And they also felt that physically they had better orgasm. So like, there's really no reason not to try it.
Right.
As long as your partner is willing, obviously. Like, go to the bathroom, throw in some mouthwash or brush your teeth, and then hop in bed and have some fun and see how your day goes.
And so that is a good time for any chronotype, is what you're saying. Right?
I am.
That's great. I have a couple listener questions because I put out a call for questions. So some of these we've kind of talked about a little bit, but let's just go through them really fast. The first one was, is it true that we need less sleep as we age? And you kind of talked
Great
about
question.
that.
So the answer is no. So here's the deal, is we sleep differently as we age. I've got a lot of people who are my age, again, I'm 57, who sleep 6.5 hours, and that's perfectly fine for them. Remember, 8 hours is a myth. Very few people need exactly 8. And as we get older, one of the problems is we don't have as much to do in our schedule. And so sometimes we take these unscheduled naps. like
Right.
watching the ball game or a game
Yeah.
show or,
Sure.
something like that. And so when you look at sleep in a 24-hour cycle for most seniors, what you
Mhm.
discover is they get roughly the same amount of sleep that they did when
Yeah.
they were younger. It's just a little bit more broken up.
I think some people probably get confused with like this idea of going to bed early, waking
Mhm.
up early that we do
Right.
as we age. Like, does that mean we're sleeping less?
Right.
But actually not.
Usually
Yeah.
not. What I will tell you though is as we get older, a lot of people don't realize how some of their habits can affect their
Mhm.
sleep.
Mhm.
Specifically, I'm talking about caffeine consumption. So
Sure.
when I'm working with the elderly population, they think coffee is water, okay? Because they've been drinking it for 30, 40, 50
Yeah.
years, right? And so
Right.
they see no effects from caffeine. And so you have to kind of break in, because when you say, hey, are you hydrating? They'll include coffee as hydrate because it
Right.
just doesn't dawn on
Right.
them. So those are some of the habits that as you get older, you want to watch out for. I will
Mhm.
tell you that we do see a little bit more as you get older fragmentation in your sleep. So a little bit lighter sleep
Mhm.
that people get.
Sure.
So again, another kind of just like menopause, like don't rock the
Mhm.
boat. Okay.
Mhm.
Like I just gave you 5 fantastic tips. If you do that, I can assure you as a
Right.
senior, your sleep quality will improve.
Yep. Exactly. Okay. What's your take on sleep trackers and
Yeah.
wearable tech? I think you have an Aura ring on.
Right there.
Yes, you do. And I
Yep.
have one on too.
So pros
What's
and
your
cons
thoughts?
in
Yeah.
every direction here. Okay. So I want to be
Okay.
super duper clear. A tracker is not a medical device.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Once again, a tracker is not a medical device. Okay.
Yes.
So don't look at your Aura ring and think that you're going to learn if you got sleep apnea or not, because that is
Mhm.
not what it is designed to do. So
Correct.
to be clear, I was on Aura's advisory board for a year. I have most of my patients on Aura rings. However, I look at the data in a very unique way.
Mhm.
So first of all of my patients still use paper, pencil, sleep diaries,
Okay.
and they are not allowed to transfer over their Aura data directly to the diary. They must answer the questions spontaneously every morning. I use the Aura ring as a check,
Sure.
just to double check, to just kind of see, how close are they? But I want to be
Mhm.
super duper clear. Things that Aura
Mhm.
is good at is it knows when you fall asleep and it knows when you wake up. It is
Mhm.
not good at depth of sleep. By the way,
Mhm.
nobody is. Okay. And there's a
Exactly.
reason for that, because the way we measure sleep is through EEG, and you ain't going to get enough proxy data using
Correct.
temperature and blood pressure from a ring to be able to get you there.
Mhm.
Now,
Mhm.
there's some cool products on the market that are coming soon. I have a buddy who's got an earbud that measures EEG all night while you wear it all night. It's comfortable. You can punch in music, meditations, whatever, and he's measuring your sleep. That kind of thing is pretty interesting. And I think we
Mhm.
start to see some cool kind of fun stuff happen with those types of new technology. But in general, trackers are not super duper accurate. Don't look at the depth of sleep. Also, please do me a favor. Don't let a tracker hijack your day. Okay.
Exactly.
I cannot count the number of people who say, I slept great and my Aura said I got a
I mean,
45. I'm so
yeah.
depressed,
I
Michael.
I got this ring because I needed to understand what it is because so many people were asking me about it, right? And I think it's this balance between
Mhm.
using it as information, but then also, you can't just like give away your power to that Aura ring.
Right.
And like, how do you feel in the morning? Like, let's check in. Like,
Yeah.
just because the Aura ring says I slept well, but I feel like crap,
Right. There's
right?
something going on here. So on the
Exactly.
bottom of my sleep diary, I ask you, scale of 1 to 5, how do you feel?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the most important metric there is. You
Yeah.
are your best doctor. I want to be
Yeah.
super duper clear about that.
Absolutely.
You know your body better than any human on earth. You know what works,
Mhm.
what doesn't, all of that stuff. So
Right.
you will know when you got a good night's sleep. Don't worry about a number. What I tell my
Yeah.
patients to do is only check your data once a week. Only
Yep.
look at trends.
Mhm.
Right?
Yeah. One more question.
Sure.
Can naps, this is another listener question. It came up a couple times. Can naps make up for lost sleep? Like naps during the day or
Mhm.
even like sleeping longer on the weekends? Is there a way to like fill up your sleep bank?
So I wish there was,
Right.
but it doesn't really work that way. I wish that it did, but it doesn't. So one of the things that's important to understand is napping is good from a supplemental standpoint, only from the standpoint of if you only got 4 hours of sleep last night, take a nap, right? Take
Mhm.
a 25-minute nap or take a
Mhm.
90-minute nap. Do
Mhm.
not take a 45-minute nap. You hit deep sleep. You feel like crap when you wake up and it
Exactly.
is not worth it.
Sure.
So take a 25-minute nap if you need to.
Uh-huh.
If like, let's say you only got 4 hours last night, you can do a full sleep cycle, which is 90 minutes, but get up, right? Because
Yeah.
what you're doing is you're reducing sleep drive. And when you reduce sleep drive, it's harder for you to fall asleep at night. And now you got two
Exactly.
problems on your hands.
Right.
So generally speaking, insomniacs should never, ever nap. Never.
Okay.
Right? But other folks, if you're watching golf,
Yeah.
it's kind of my favorite time though now.
Love it. And you had also talked about a little bit about sleep apnea and like a home sleep test.
Yeah.
Can you tell me about that? Because that's really interesting to me.
So here's the good news is pre-COVID, it took forever to get one of these done. You had to go to a lab. We had to glue 27 electrodes on you. We had respiratory belts. Like you didn't get a good night's sleep. Let's be fair.
Right.
Since COVID, nobody wants to sleep in a lab anymore. All the technology advanced very rapidly. And now we have what are called HSTs or home sleep tests. Now, here's what's cool about them. You never actually have to leave your house. So it used to be you'd have to go to the doctor's office. They'd have to order one. Then you'd go to the lab. It might take weeks to get in.
Yep.
None of that happens now. You go on a Zoom call with a doctor. They talk with you. They assess you. They push a button. A home sleep study comes to your house 24 hours later. You wear it on your wrist. Now, I want to be clear. It's not measuring sleep stages. It's measuring apnea, which is very easy to measure. Right? When you from a ring or from a wristband, because you're just looking at things like oxygen, respiration, breath pause, things like that. You're not looking at depth of EEG. And then guess what? The next morning, the data jumps to the cloud. Literally 24 hours later, you're talking with a physician and they're giving you your results and they're teaching you about the different treatment modalities. So the time has squunched from 7 weeks to 7 days or less. And the treatments are getting better. So my thought is at $200, because that's what it costs, out of your pocket, $200 or covered by insurance, it's probably worth it to just get screened for sleep apnea. And so that's kind of the big thing that I've been talking with a lot of people about is you may not even know that you've got sleep apnea, but if you do and it's on board, you really don't want to leave it unattended because there's just all kinds of bad stuff that kind of couples up with it.
And I think the point there is that so many people, their sleep is disrupted and, difficult because of sleep apnea, right? And I think that's sort of the point is that you don't even know you have sleep apnea and that's what's causing your sleep issues.
Exactly.
Right? So,
exactly.
Okay, that's fascinating. Last thing, really quick question. If there is one thing that you want listeners to go away with, because, this is called the Healing Catalyst podcast.
Yes.
And it's really about helping people make impactful changes to their life. What is the one thing that you really want our listeners to really come away with? Something that they could do starting today to really impact their sleep.
Wake up at the same time 7 days a week. I swear to you, I swear, it will work. And it doesn't cost a dime. And if you really want it to work well, do it based on your chronotype.
Love it. Michael, thank you so much for
Thanks
doing
for having me. This was super fun.
And it was so much fun. You're a wealth of knowledge, and I really appreciate you. Thank you.
Yeah. If people want to learn more, swing on over to thesleepdoctor.com/Dr. Mike.
Okay, my beautiful friends, I want to leave you with just a few thoughts as we close out this first episode of the Summer Reset series. I think it's important to notice that what Michael calls a chronotype is what Ayurveda has been teaching for thousands of years. Different name, same truth, that your body has a constitution, a pattern, a way that it wants to move through the day and through the world, through the season, the decade. And when you know your pattern, everything else starts to fall into place. Because so many of us have been told in some form or another that we're doing it wrong. You don't wake up early enough. You don't have enough energy because you're not disciplined. You're not exercising in this way. And we've carried those stories for years and sometimes decades, our whole lives. But your body isn't doing it wrong. It's your constitution, and that's what it's supposed to be. You are the dosha that you're supposed to be. And the world has been measuring you against the wrong standard, which is why you've been measuring yourself against the wrong standard. That's the teaching underneath what I talked about with Dr. Breus in this episode. The work isn't to override your body. The work is to recognize your unique biology. And if this conversation is more of what you want, Dr. Thamit Sethi and I are over at the Weekly Health RX on Substack, where we give you personalized prescriptions, not generic advice, built for you and your biology, specifically in midlife, in perimenopause and menopause. So come find us at theweeklyhealthrx.substack.com. It's free to start. There's also a link in the show notes. Thank you so much for being here. And if this episode hit home, please share it with a friend who needs to hear it. And remember, healing isn't just possible, it's in your power. I'll see you again next time. Until then, be well. Thank you for listening to The Healing Catalyst. If you found this episode helpful, please hit follow and share it with a friend. And if you feel inspired, please rate and review because it helps others find this podcast more easily. For more insights and tips, head to my website at avantikumarsingh.com. And to connect with me directly, find me on Instagram at Avanti Kumar-Singh. I loved sharing this episode with you. My hope is that you heard something today that sparks a catalyst in your healing journey and helps you build lasting health. Be well, and I'll see you next time. This is a Dante 32 production.